The WNBA put it in writing. In an official league document, they called what Alyssa Thomas did to Caitlin Clark a non-basketball act. Reckless contact with her fist to the throat area. That's not a fan saying it. That's not me saying it. That's the league's own words about its own game, the night after they'd already watched these two teams nearly come to blows. And by the end of this video, I'm going to show you the one detail about this whole story. The poster, the suspension, all of it, that nobody covering it has actually checked. It flips the entire narrative. Stay with me. Let's back up, because the context makes this worse, not better. This was the second game in 3 days between the Indiana Fever and the Phoenix Mercury, both in Indianapolis, and both were powder kegs. The first one, on Monday, the Fever won 86-77. That game had 6 technical fouls and an ejection. Caitlin Clark picked up her 5th technical of the season in a fourth-quarter dust-up that started with her former teammate Diana Bonner. Clark was baffled by it afterward. She said she got a technical for clapping. That tech, by the way, tied her with Angel Reese for the league lead. And in the WNBA, you hit 8, you're automatically suspended a game. So the officiating was already the storyline going into Wednesday. Then Wednesday happened. About 6.5 minutes into the second quarter, Clark drove into the lane and stumbled onto her side after contact with a defender. 3 Mercury players collapsed on her going for the loose ball. And in the middle of that scramble, Alyssa Thomas pushed her fist into Clark's neck, got up, and stepped over her. No whistle. The official was right there on the baseline. Play went on. Now here's where I have to do the thing this channel exists to do. If you've watched the other videos about this, you've heard the words punch, throttled, choked, assault. I'm not going to use those words, and here's why. The league reviewed it and ruled it a flagrant foul 2, reckless contact with the fist to the throat area, a non-basketball act. They suspended Thomas 1 game. They fined her $1,000. She served the suspension when Phoenix played in Toronto. That is the verified, on-the-record outcome. And it is damning enough on its own. It was reckless, it was to the throat, it was dangerous, and the officials missed it live. I don't need to call it a punch to make Phoenix look bad. The league's own paperwork does that for me. The second you exaggerate, you hand the other side a reason to dismiss everything else you say. And they will take it. Clark, for what it's worth, left that game in the second half with a back injury. She finished with 19 points and 8 assists in 20 minutes. The Fever lost 111-109. So that's the foul. The league caught it after the fact, which raises the obvious question everybody's screaming. How do you miss that in real time? But here's what nobody's telling you. This is not a one-referee problem, and the people trying to sell you a single villain, a specific named ref you're supposed to get suspended, are actually making the story smaller than it is. Because the real pattern is bigger, and it's documented. Go back to 2024. Chundi Carter hip-checked Clark on a play where Clark didn't even have the ball. No foul called live. Later upgraded. Last season, Marina Mabrey, then with Connecticut, got a technical against Indiana that the league went back and upgraded to a flagrant 2. See the shape of it yet? Live, nothing. Public pressure builds. Then, after the fact, the league reaches back and reclassifies. That's not one bad official having one bad night. That's a league that referees by replay and reaction instead of in the moment. Even the people who cover this closely have made the same point. That Clark isn't the disease here, she's the magnifying glass. She's so visible that every officiating problem the WNBA has had for years now happens under a spotlight, and suddenly millions of new fans are seeing what longtime fans have complained about forever. And to be fair, because we're fair on this channel, officiating a basketball game is genuinely hard, and the Fever's own coach said the thing that actually matters. Stephanie White didn't just want a punishment. She said the league went back and used its review power, and she's glad they did, but the real ask is consistency. Catch it live. Call Clark the way you call everybody else. That's a reasonable thing to want, and it's a more honest complaint than fire one ref. Phoenix, on their side, felt the suspension process itself was rushed, and that nobody from the league talked to them before handing it down. You don't have to agree with that to acknowledge it's their position. Alyssa Thomas is a genuine competitor with a real reputation in this league, and her coach defended her hard. Both of those things can be true at once. The contact was reckless and suspendable, and Thomas isn't some cartoon villain. Holding both is what separates analysis from rage bait. Okay, the reveal I promised you. The poster. If you've been online this week, you've seen the outrage. The WNBA dropped a 30th anniversary poster. 30 players, past and present. It sells for $29.99 in the league store. Angel Reese is on it. Paige Buchers is on it. Sophie Cunningham, Clark's own teammate, is on it. And Caitlin Clark, the single most marketable player the league has ever had, the woman who moved road games to bigger arenas and pushed this league from commercial flights to charter jets, is not on it. The internet decided this was the final proof. The league hates its own star. Here's the part nobody checked. The poster wasn't made in-house. It was made by Wincraft, a Fanatics company, as a commercial product to sell. And the licensing reality is this. Outside of Nike, Caitlin Clark only lets companies use her name and number, not her likeness, not her image. Wincraft didn't have the rights to put her face on a product they were selling. That's not a snub. That's a contract. And the proof that it's a licensing issue and not a Clark vendetta? Look who else got left off. Diana Taurasi, Sue Bird, Candace Parker, Elena Del Don. Some of the biggest names in the history of the sport, gone, for the same boring reason. If the league wanted to erase Caitlin Clark, they didn't also need to erase 4 Hall of Famers to do it. Now, is it a bad look that the WNBA picked a vendor who couldn't feature its biggest star on a milestone poster? Yes. That's a real, fair criticism. Mismanagement, absolutely. But mismanagement and malice are different words, and the difference is the entire story. One is a league that can't get out of its own way. The other is a conspiracy. Only one of them is true, and now you know which. So here's where it actually leaves us. A reckless foul the league admitted in writing. A real, documented pattern of officiating after the fact instead of in the moment. And a snub that turns out to be a contract clause. 3 separate stories, and the rage merchants got 2 of them wrong while the truth was sitting right there the whole time. That's the difference between yelling and knowing. If you want the version of WNBA coverage that actually checks the receipt before it sells you the outrage, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next one. Because with these 2 teams, there is always a next one. Play on.